Growing up as a black man, I was taught that I could only show anger and happiness. Anything else was considered weak, and in our culture, being seen as weak can be dangerous. Mental health was a topic we never discussed, and there was a stigma associated with it. In my rural community, we would see people struggling with mental health issues and simply write them off, avoiding any real conversations about it. It wasn't until I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder that I had a meaningful conversation about mental health, with my grandmother opening up about her own struggles. It was a wake-up call for me and my family, and it's a conversation that needs to happen more often in our communities. After finishing high school with good grades, I went to UNC Chapel Hill on an academic scholarship and even joined the football and track teams. But things took a turn for the worse after my freshman year. I struggled to adapt to college life, especially as a black person in a predominantly white school. I felt like I had lost my sense of community and identity. Then, during my sophomore year, I suffered a knee injury that ended my athletic career. This, combined with the challenges of college, led me into a downward spiral. I started withdrawing from my friends, refusing to talk to them or even leave my room. I stopped taking care of myself and lost a significant amount of weight in just 6 weeks. I didn't sleep for 2 weeks, and I began to hear voices. At the time, I didn't understand that I was experiencing depression. I just felt sad and lost. I stopped attending classes and lost interest in taking care of myself. It was a difficult time in my life, and I didn't know how to cope with it. My family noticed that something was wrong when they saw me, but I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to talk about it, but they could see that I needed help. They decided to take me to the hospital, and I fought them the whole way there. When I was taken to the Duke University Medical Center psychiatric ward, I became very anxious and ended up acting out by punching a nurse. I didn't mean to harm her, I was just scared and didn't want to be there. I was restrained and put on sedatives to calm me down. The staff asked me a lot of questions, which was difficult for me to answer while being restrained in a padded room. My family looked very upset when they saw me in that state. Being in the hospital was tough, especially because there were no other people who looked like me. As a black male, I found it hard to trust anyone there and was afraid to talk about what was going on in my mind. When I was diagnosed with bipolar I disorder with psychotic features, I was in disbelief. I just wanted to say, okay, so I could leave. The doctors advised me to stay away from school, as it was a trigger for me, and to follow a treatment plan involving medication and therapy. After leaving the hospital, I didn't want to go back home because I felt like I had failed by having to leave school and being labeled with bipolar disorder. So, I moved to Charlotte where I connected with Dr. Kendall Jasper, a psychologist. He was a game changer for me because he was down to earth and relatable. He provided talk therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, and also referred me to a psychiatrist. He even accompanied me to some of my psychiatrist appointments to work on my medications and find the right ones to help me sleep and calm down the voices in my head. When I started feeling better, I stopped taking my medications and going to therapy because I thought I was cured. But when I went back to school in 2007, my symptoms came back. Instead of going back to therapy, I started drinking heavily. I was functioning in my daily life, but I was in emotional pain. I felt like I needed alcohol to get through the day, but it was actually making things worse. I even made 3 suicide attempts during this time. After my last suicide attempt, I needed to figure out what had helped me the first time I got better. I realized it wasn't the alcohol, so I knew I had to go back into treatment. This time, I was very deliberate about therapy. I started incorporating different techniques into my daily life that helped me, such as meditation, yoga, and journaling. I also made sure to eat healthier, get enough sleep, and make time for myself. During the second treatment process, I focused on learning who I was, identifying my triggers, and recognizing my protective factors. Once I understood these things, I was able to accept my diagnosis and take responsibility for my bipolar disorder. This shift in mindset was a turning point for me. After I became healthier, I noticed that many of my family and friends were also struggling with their mental health, even though they hadn't been diagnosed. This inspired me to become a therapist and to pursue my education in mental health counseling and international psychology. Many of the clients I work with are men of color, and I understand that they may not feel comfortable opening up in a traditional therapy setting. That's why I make an effort to meet them where they are and make them feel at ease. I often incorporate physical activities into my therapy sessions, such as playing basketball or going for a walk, especially when working with young boys. Building trust and making my clients feel comfortable is my top priority. I also founded a non-profit organization called Eustress, which focuses on promoting good stress and addressing mental health issues within the Black and Brown communities. Throughout the year, I organize 3 mental health awareness walks, offering yoga classes, fitness boot camps, and other resources to promote mental well-being. Additionally, I host adult coloring nights as a therapeutic tool and facilitate a weekly conference call called Locker Room Talk for men to openly discuss mental health challenges. Last year, I launched the Young Black Male Eustress Initiative, providing therapy to 7th grade boys and their teachers, as well as offering support to their families. My goal is to reduce barriers to accessing mental health treatment and to break the cycles of trauma, depression, alcoholism, and sexual abuse within the Black community.